And your position?
I'm Dawn Gleason. I'm the President and CEO of Columbus Speech and Hearing Center.
I am Amy Claiborne, President and CEO of Homeport. Some of you may know us as Columbus Housing Partnership. We got accredited a long time ago, and I'm glad we did, but I don't remember when.
So what first prompted you to look at accreditation?
I think for us, we were looking for something that looked at the entire organization. Some of our programs are accredited by certain agencies. The Ohio Department of Health comes in and has some standards that we are required to meet to bill Medicaid and Medicare, but nobody really looked at the organization as a whole. And I think we were really interested in being accountable and letting our donors and the public know the high integrity that we have, and this was a way we thought we could show that.
A lot of similarity for us. When we made the decision to become accredited, it was because we wanted the good stamp of approval, and that we knew by going to an outside organization that would tell our donors and our board and others that governance matters and how we run the organization matters. So this came from staff to the board, that it was a way for us to ensure that we were running the organization well, and we can have somebody else tell us that.
Were there any reasons for hesitation?
Not really. I think it was a little bit intimidating because it was such a big process, and the fee is something that we had to really think about, but we felt like it was worth the investment.
We didn't hesitate. We needed to be in a position that we had the staff who could undertake the work to make it happen. So we spent the first period of time understanding what are all of the requirements for certification, what do we have to have in place, that allocated the staff time to do that. So I think we thought about it 1 year and did it the second year, and that worked for us.
And what kind of support did you receive from OANO? What kind of support did they offer you during and after your accreditation?
So the support was fabulous. We had a staff person who was responsible for gathering all the information, and obviously there was a lot of coordination amongst the senior members of our team and the board. But there were a lot of questions that would come up. What does this mean? What should we be doing for that? And we could call and get help. Even now, so this many years later, I get the OANO newsletters all the time, and continually ask, can you send me these sample policies? Because it's not once that you put all these policies and procedures in place to get accredited. I mean, this is a commitment to ongoing excellence in governance. And so OANO has been helpful over the years as we continue to update how we do things. So they've been helpful all along.
I would agree with that. They've provided a lot of support, and I know going through the application, there were times when we interpreted something one way, and I'm not sure that that's what they mean. You could call and say, here's how I think we're meeting this standard. Is that what you're looking for? And they were very helpful.
And what skill or methodology did you gain from accreditation that you find most helpful in your role and also for your organization?
I think for us, as I mentioned earlier, we go through a number of accreditations. We kind of took a look at all of them and built some matrices to look at what are the standards, what does ODH require, what does the Commission on Accreditation for Rehab Facilities require, what do our auditors require, what does OANO require, and we call them checklists, and we can just go through them periodically and update, and that's been really helpful because as Amy said, this is a continual process, but I think it's one of those things that it's hard sometimes just to, we're going to review everything this year. It's really hard to have the discipline to do that, so these tools have been really helpful.
The tools help us just keep in line with the governance practices that are important to the organization. So it's a good reminder throughout the years of what we should be doing.
And how did you fit implementing the standards for excellence and applying to earn the seal of excellence into your day-to-day work? And what advice would you have for your colleagues on this topic?
My advice to our colleagues on this topic is that governance matters, and that having the systems in place to continually think about how you're running your organization matters. It matters to the people we serve, to the funders. You hear a lot about organizations that don't pay attention to governance, and they end up having trouble. And some of them are no longer with us because they didn't pay attention to these important issues. So it's a continual reminder. I get it as a CEO, but I want my whole team to get it. And it's a reminder to them every time we need to go back and recertify, this matters, we have to do these things. It's not because I say so, it's because it's the right thing to do. And that's helpful in governing the organization and helps the board focus on governance and the right kind of conversations that they should be having to help drive us forward to solve community problems.
When we went through, our director of operations and I met weekly. We had planned to do this. It was in our goals for the year, and we set aside time every week and would go through standards, and then we would each work either on our own or with some of the other leaders in our organization or our board to complete our pieces. And I think just having that regular schedule helped us really get through the process.
And how long did it take you to implement the standards and receive accreditation?
I think the first time we went through the accreditation process, it probably took about 6 months. A couple years ago, we were reaccredited. That was a much easier process, and probably more like 2 or 3 months.
I think similar for us.
And how is your organization different as a result of this process?
I think for our organization has changed because of this process, and again, it's evolving. We're accredited by other organizations as well. It began the process of having us think differently about governance and systems within the organization for accountability, and that matters. So it laid that framework for the organization and how to think about how we run ourselves as a nonprofit business. So we continue that today, and we continue getting better and better as we think about this annually with different certifications that we need to comply with.
And I think for us, it's just knowing that we're following best practices, which is always our intent, but sometimes you maybe don't know what those are, and this is a really easy way to know what's the standard, what should we be doing to be following best practices.
And along with that, the best practices change. I mean, what was best practice 10 years ago or so when we first came in are different today. And that's why continuing to be a member and receiving the information helps us continue to be cutting edge of governance and accountability as an organization.
So which part of your application are you most proud of?
The giant binder.
The fact that we did it.
Yeah.
Me?
That was a hard question for me when we were preparing. I don't know that there's one section. I mean, there were pieces like our volunteer program. We were able to put a lot of structure and policies around that we didn't have and we needed to have. So that was really helpful.
I could say a more general response is I'm proud of our organization for having the discipline to complete this big application, because I know when they first saw it, it's very daunting. Oh my gosh, this touches every part of the organization and it's big. But the fact is they worked together, they completed something that's very important and learned a lot in the process. And so part of being a learning organization is we do the hard things, and they did that.
And I think it helped us teach staff, this is why we need to do some things this way. I know it's more work for you, but here's why. And once they understand the why, then it's much easier.
It's always helpful having others help us tell our staff what the why is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been helpful.
And both of you have touched on this next question, but just in case you would like to add more, who from your organization was involved in the Standards for Excellence process and submission?
The Director of Operations and I really kind of took the lead on it, but based on whatever section we were working on, we would need to pull in, the HR professional on our board, to get her advice on something, or the attorneys, or our leadership team. So, we really tried to coordinate and have everybody have input and be a part of the process.
So my recollection, because it's a while ago, is that we had one of the people on our grants team be the lead in terms of seeing the complete application and making sure that all the different pieces are there, because there's a lot of administrative part to this. And we viewed it as if we were getting a grant. Here's all the different things that have to be there. Let's make sure they are. It all needs to be well written and organized. And from there, it went to a group of us in leadership in the organization that hit the different disciplines to do the more in-depth programmatic or content-related pieces. But that's how we thought about it. And so when we need to do the recertifications, it goes to our grants team to make sure that all of the pieces are in place and that it then gets submitted.
And in what way can Standards for Excellence help organizations, even those that do not apply for the Seal of Excellence?
I think just going through the process and looking at the standards and asking yourself, how are we meeting these? I think there's a lot of value in that. I know for us, it's much easier if it's a goal and it's a process that we're going to go through, rather than, gee, I hope we're going to revise our policy and procedure manual this year, and things change and other things are priorities, and it's just hard to have the discipline to get through that. And this is very valuable whether you go through the accreditation or not, because you're getting best practices, and it's an opportunity to improve what you're doing.
I would agree with that and take it a step further, which is, as an organization, we're being entrusted to take donations, take contributions from a lot of sources, and with that comes an obligation to run our organizations very well, to follow best practices, to have all the appropriate oversight, so that what we're entrusted to do, not just from the financial perspective, but again as a nonprofit, to serve our community and making sure that the resources that come into us serve our mission and serve the community. And so I think we're obligated as nonprofits to get certified and to make the commitment to excellence. And if your organization can't do that, then as a leadership of the organization and the board, you need to step back and say, if we can't commit to these things, are we fulfilling our obligations to the community? And I think that's important. When you're a for-profit business, if you don't follow good practices, people don't come back. Now, you go out of business. Now, as a nonprofit, how do others know that you're following these good practices? Not everybody has the multiple certifications that your organization does, and in fact our organization does. So how do people know? So I think it's important, and I think it's a good thing. I'm glad we did it.
So in what areas in nonprofit governance and/or management do you think your organization grew and became stronger?
through, our organization has grown, and again, it started with being introduced to a lot of governance and oversight issues through going through the accreditation process, which then prompted us as an organization to realize that it is important and how and why. So we kept growing. As we've grown, because the number of programs we have has grown, the number of people in our organization has grown, continuing to get the information that we have through United Way and through Owano helps us continue refining our practices. And an organization can't stay stale. Things are changing out in the world every day. And so if we don't keep up and keep changing our practices, and to do that, we need the information, we need the assistance that the organizations that we're part of provides to us. So it's helped us increase the oversight that our executive team provides and the board provides to the organization.
I would agree with that. I think the more information you have, the more critically you can look at programs and make adjustments and improve them. And I know for our board, it's an assurance. They don't know that we have all these systems in place all the time. There's no way for them to know that. But when I can go and say, here are the standards, here's how we met them, it's a comfort, it's a level of assurance that we are well run and we have the proper procedures in place.
Is there anything either of you would like to add?
I'm glad that United Way has partnered with Owano to put forth these standards of excellence and to help organizations become and continue to be the best organization they can be. What we do matters to the community. Our community cannot provide the programs to residents so that they can come up and out of poverty and they can succeed in their lives without the nonprofit sector. The nonprofit sector has a responsibility to do the best we can. And so I'm glad of this partnership, so thank you.
I would agree with that. I think it's really a capacity building tool that as organizations we have that we can grow and build our organizations with. And, it's a lot of work, but I'm proud that we did it, and I think it's really important.
All right. Well, thank you to
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to get in the conversation?
Is there anything you wanted us to say
No, I
that we
think it
haven't
was
said?
That was
Okay.
excellent.
It was excellent.